Hi friends, I'm Caro. Welcome to my YouTube channel. Today I'm here to share my top 10 books of 2025. To clarify, these are all books that I read last year. They haven't all necessarily been published then. And they're in no particular order. I'm saving my top book for last, but other than that, I'm horrible at ranking things. I couldn't do it. But I think that speaks well of all the books on this list. So let's get started. The first book is The Woman in the Hall by J.B. Stern. This is one of the books from the British Library Women Writers collection. It was originally published in 1939, and it's about a woman named Lorna Blake, who is a professional beggar, or I should say a professional swindler. It starts with her, with her basically showing up at someone's house and asking for money, and when in a situation where she really needed it, and she gets the money. She also gets an unexpected high. Um, yes, so this is a bit of a chunky book, but I just had such a great time reading it. Lorna takes along her young daughters with her as she visits people's houses and asks for money, and the stories get more and more elaborate. Um, and and as of course, as the net grows tighter around her, things really start to, like, the tension really ratchets up. Um, this is such an interesting book about mother-daughter relationships, relationships between sisters, and yeah, it's something. It was both thrilling, but also there's a lot to unpack in this book. I read it slowly. You could read it quickly, but yes, I highly recommend you read this one. The next book was republished was also republished in the British Library Women Writers series. It's The Spring Begins by Catherine Dunning. This one was originally published in 1934, and it it follows three women who are all in service. Their names are there's a young nursemaid, Lottie, a scullery maid, Maggie, and Hessie Prince, who is a governess. Um, and two of the women work in one house, and Hessie works nearby. And this book just swept me away. Despite the title, I should say this. Despite the title, it is a summertime book. It is set in the heat of the summer, and the spring begins. The spring is really like this sexual, or yeah, this sexual awakening of these women. And yeah, it's just so fascinating. It was touching at times. It was scary at times. It was so beautifully written. And of course, because it follows three women who are in service, and the focus is really on them. You get their perspective. You don't get the perspective of the people who own these houses, the upper class people. It's a really like unusual book in that way, and it was just such a treat. I highly recommend this one. And as I said, save it for a hot summer day. The next one, I've got three mysteries here. Of course I do. I love mysteries, and this one in particular. This is London Particular by Christiana Brand. This is from the British Library Crime Classics series. And oh my goodness, this, how to begin? This is set in London, of course, and one foggy night in November, a couple go out to answer a call. The man who's in the car is a doctor. He's just got a call about someone who's ill and in need of help. There's an emergency. they arrive there and find that the man has been murdered. This book was atmospheric, it was funny at times, and it set all around this family, this close-knit family. And something bad is going on, obviously, because someone's been killed. But you just I loved this family so much, and I didn't want to see anything more happen to them. And things are going to implode. It just, I can't even. This remains my favorite British Library crime classic, for good reason. I will say about as the book goes on, one person after another confesses to this crime, and each one is equally believable. And I just found the way Christiana Brand continues to subvert your expectation, and it's just one twist after another without feeling gimmicky. She's just wonderful. Yes, I cannot recommend this one enough. The next one is The Wheel Spins by Ethelina White. This was adapted for film by Alfred Hitchcock and is known as The Lady Vanishes. Well, I remember watching the film years and years ago when I was a child and loving it. I had I guess I kind of still do have a bit of an Alfred Hitchcock film obsession. I wrote a review of this on my blog before I rewatched the film, and I think I said something like, "Oh, it's exactly the same. It's no different." I would say the tone of the film is a lot different from the book. The film, there's definitely these comedic elements, and while I think Ethelina White has a sense of humor, this is not a light book. It is tense. It is another one that's very atmospheric. It is almost entirely set on a train. And if you like trains, I love a mystery with a train in it. Yes, so it follows Iris Carr, and she's on holiday in the mountains in Europe, and the rest of her party have left, that she was on holiday with. They've already left, and she is coming back to returning home on the train by herself. Well, she suffers from sunstroke and faints while she's at the train station. And she has a very interesting occurrence, interesting circumstance happened to her. She is helped by this woman, this really kind woman, and I'm going to forget what her name is because it's been a while since I read this book. Miss Froy. Yes, Miss Froy. So this woman, Miss Froy, who is so kind to her and helps her, Iris falls asleep, and then when she wakes up, Miss Froy is gone. And she can't be found anywhere, and people claim that she was never there. And she just disappears, and she can't have disappeared because they're on a train. It's just so good. It's so good. I highly recommend this. If you like Alfred Hitchcock films, you're going to love this book. And I love it. Just talking about it is making me want to read it again. So this is another one that I really loved. I've talked about it on here before. It's The Christmas Egg by Mary Kelly. A Russian princess who has fled Russia for London is found murdered. And it is said that she had a chest of jewels hidden underneath her bed. But the jewels, of course, are gone. This book was just the right amount. It wasn't a particularly festive book, I'll say that, but there are mentions of Christmas throughout, and without it feeling gimmicky, And there is just this lovely scene. The climax is takes place in the countryside in Kent, and there's just this wonderful like winter chase scene. I just loved it. This one was also republished by the British Library in their crime classics collection, so you can easily find this one. And I mean, it's right up there with my favorites, as you can see, of their collection. So I can't recommend this one enough. So now for a couple of children's books. Over Sea, Under Stone by Susan Cooper is the first book in her The Dark is Rising sequence. Um, this was originally published in 1956, and wow, it was so good. If you've read The Dark is Rising, well, for one thing, I should say that you can enjoy The Dark is Rising, the one that is probably best known in this collection, in this series. You can read it as a standalone. While the books are connected, it's not they're not overly connected. There is character crossover, but they're not continuous stories. Yes, so I read The Dark is Rising first, and then I read this because my friend Mary, gifted this to me, and she gave it to me with 3 tea bags and a beautiful bookmark that she had hand painted, with the instruction to read it on a summer's day. And just drink tea. And I did that, and it was perfect. This is set in summer in Cornwall. 3 siblings go to visit their great uncle Mary, and they find a parchment in their uncle's attic, which turns out to be a map. They go on a hunt for a grail, and they just have like this wonderful adventure. There are chase scenes, there's intrigue, and they think they're just looking for, following a treasure map. Really, they've got themselves involved in this this fight for good and evil. Um, and it's just so good. It's just so good. And it's one of those children's books that does this idea of like there being a realm between fantasy and reality. Um, it does it so well. And yeah, it's something that I've realized I don't enjoy so much in adult books. This like more fantasy style, fantasy as a genre, but I love it in children's books, and I'm not quite sure why that is, but this really worked for me. I had such a great time reading it. I know I'll be reading it again soon. The next one I have talked on and on about on this channel. It's Pat of Silverbush by Lucy Maud Montgomery. No one's going to be surprised to see this here on this list. This was originally published in, I think it's 1933. Yes, 1933. And it follows Pat, who I believe at the start of the book is 8 years old. I could be wrong about that. She's young. She's a young girl, and she lives on her family farm, Silverbush, on Prince Edward Island in Canada. And it's a book basically about her love of family and her friends. And Pat is a very quiet, domesticated girl. But she does have adventures. She loves the outdoors. There's beautiful descriptions of the landscape. And you really feel Lucy Maud Montgomery's her love of Prince Edward Island and her longing for childhood. There's so much nostalgia in this book, and so many beautiful quotations. I can't recommend it enough. I feel I'm getting a little bit choked up just thinking about it. But yes, I adored this book. And Pat, I mean, she has a special place in my heart. I have not read Mistress Pat, which is the second book in this 2-book series. I guess you'd just call it a duology. I haven't read it yet. I feel like I'm kind of saving it, but I'm so excited. I'm so excited. I wouldn't be surprised if Mistress Pat is on this list for next year. Um, and then a couple of books that have been republished, or I should say published this year, or in 2025. And that is, the first one is The Eights by Joanna Miller. This is a debut novel, and wow. Um, it follows four girls who are enrolled at Oxford University. It's 1920. I had to check. I read this when it came out. So at the beginning, I think it was March or April. So it's been a while. Um, but oh my goodness, this was so good. So it's obviously historical fiction, and it is done so well, though. Sometimes I find that when you're reading historical fiction, especially when it centers around a group of women or a woman, um, there's the tendency for the writer to give these characters modern sensibilities, which is fine, but I feel it kind of pulls me out of the time. Does that make sense? Like it ruins the illusion of it being set in whatever time period. So I will say these women, while I do feel like they are modern for their time, they feel legitimate to the time in which they exist in 1920. Um, and I loved seeing these women form a bond, form a friendship, um, when they all have their own challenges. They're all very different from each other. And I also really appreciated that there is never the sense that they are in competition with each other. They really form a sisterhood. And the eights, the title refers to the floor. They live on the eighth floor, I think, of this building. 1920 was the first year that they started giving women, like women were allowed to get a degree. At the start of their year, at the start of the school year, they see a bunch of other women get their degree, um, which is just so powerful. We also come across a few historical figures in this book, and it's just done so well. Um, I wrote a little note to myself. I don't use Goodreads anymore. I used to, but to keep track of the books that I read, I at the time was just keeping like a list on my phone, and I'd often write like a little note to myself about the book, just right after I had finished reading it. And this one, my note was a question: what's next for these women? Because I feel like they are living and breathing and going on, and I would love to know what's next. I would love to read a book that is set a little further on in these women's lives and see where they are. Oh, it was so good. And Joanna Miller, I will be looking out for her next book. I'm so excited. I'm so excited. I feel like she was just like a great find for me this year, as though I found her. um, and then the next one I have also talked to some length about on here. It's Love Divine by Yasenda Max Tone Graham. This was published by Slightly Foxed, and it is set in a small village, and it all kind of revolves around the church. All of the scenes that we see, all of the characters are connected to the church in some way. And I just found this to be such a moving and heartfelt book. It's also so funny. Yasenda Max Tone Graham has such a lovely sense of humor. Yeah, it was just lovely. It's set over the course of a year, and it starts, I believe, New Year's Day, or just slightly thereafter. Um, and so it goes through over the course of the year. So January, this month, would be a great time to read this book, I think. But really, you could read it at any time of year. A lot of sad and awful things happen to some of the characters, or has just recently happened to the characters. And one person in particular, a woman, has recently lost her husband, and she is grieving. He's died recently, and she is grieving at the start of this book. And over the course of the year, she gets her life back in a way. And I just think that there's so much beauty in this book. My takeaway was that even amongst the darkest times, there's always a glimmer. There's always something, some kernel of joy to be found if only you look for it. And this was just so good. It was so good. All right, so now we're at the last book. This is my top book of the year, Crooked Cross by Sally Carson. You know, I have a horrible time at picking favorites. That's why I couldn't rank these books. But I knew when I read this book, I knew it was going to be in my top 10, but I had a serious feeling that I had just read my favorite book of the year, and this was back in April. This was originally published in 1934. It begins at Christmas in 1932, and it's set in a small village in Germany, and it's all about the rise of Nazism in Germany and how it affects one family. This book is heartbreaking. You see at the start of this book how close-knit this family is, and they're so positive and so happy. And you know, because of the time in which it is set, that what is going to happen. You know that bad things are coming. You just don't quite know how it's going to play out. The younger son has joined the Nazi party, and the elder son has been unable to find work. Their daughter has recently quit her job because she's preparing to get married to her fiance, who is a doctor. And him and Moritz and his father, who used to be a professor, are both there celebrating with the family. And everything seems normal and happy. And then you see, we get a shot, basically. It feels very cinematic. We get a shot of Hitler's photo on, I think it's on the piano. You see how it's just like the tentacles of like Nazism kind of like start to like feed their way into this family. It is such a compelling book. And as I said, I mean, it's heartbreaking. You know it's going to be heartbreaking. But I feel like it's such an important book to read, and I wish it didn't feel so timely. Yeah, it is. There are things in this book that I couldn't help but think, we are seeing history repeat itself. And the people who should read this book won't. The people who should read it the most won't. But I would urge everyone to read this book. And this is the reason why it's in my top like number one book of the year. Isn't just because I loved it and because I thought it was a great piece of literature and that the writing is incredible, and because, you know, as I said, like I loved it personally, but it's my top book because I think it's an important book. And as much as I champion cozy reading and reading for comfort and reading things that bring you joy, sometimes we also need to read things that will broaden our mind and that are important. And I think this is a very important book. Yeah. And yes, I think everyone should read it. But yes, so those are my top 10 books of the year. I feel like I'm so excited about these books that I feel like I can't properly articulate like what they're about and why I like them so much. It's like I feel like every mystery I was like, this is atmospheric, and every other book, I was like, oh, this is so beautiful. So I have also written a blog post, which covers all of these books, and you can find synopsi. Is that right? We'll go with it. Um, a rundown of each of the books, and as well as links to if I've written a full length um, review of any of them, which most of them I have. Yes, so I will include that in the description box below if you wanted to go check that out. And also, I include pictures of all the books, which is kind of fun too. But yes, I would love to hear if you had a favorite book of the year, if you had a top book, if you had a top 10 or two books that were like, right up there for you. I'd love to hear what your favorite book of last year was. Please include it in the comments down below. Did we share any of the same books? I'd love to hear about that too. And I'm going to show a little clip of Clark at the end. He is, again, sleeping by the fireplace, curled up in a blanket. So I'm not going to disturb him because he's a little old man, so we let him sleep when he wants to sleep. But yes, thank you so much for being here. If you enjoyed this video, please give it a thumbs up. And please consider subscribing. I would love to have you join our little community that's growing here. Thanks again for watching. Until next time, goodbye.